The person you keep thinking about truly does care about you in a deep way. This is not something small or temporary. It is not just a passing thought or a random feeling. It is something that sits quietly in the background of their life. Even if you do not see it clearly, it is there in the way they remember you, and in the way your presence stays in their mind. But the reason there is distance between you might not be what you expect. It may feel confusing, even painful at times, because the silence or the space can look like rejection from the outside. Still, the truth is often more complicated than what it seems. Before going further, take a slow and steady breath, because what you are trying to understand is not simple or light. It touches emotions that are deep and often unspoken between two people who feel something real but do not fully express it. If someone keeps appearing in your thoughts again and again, not just once in a while but very often, it usually means there is an emotional connection or strong impression involved. When there is also distance, whether it is emotional distance, physical separation, or long periods of silence, it can create even more questions in your mind. You may start to wonder why things are this way and what it really means. The distance is not always what it looks like on the surface. The person in your thoughts may still care about you deeply, but their way of showing it is not loud or obvious. It is not expressed through constant messages, strong words, or clear actions that are easy to notice. Instead, their feelings may exist in a quieter form, something more hidden and controlled. This is not someone who simply forgot you or stopped caring. In many cases, they still carry memories of you with them. Small details about you can stay in their mind for a long time, like the sound of your voice, the way you reacted to things, or the moments when they felt comfortable or emotionally close to you. These memories do not disappear easily. They stay in the background and come back during quiet moments. So the question becomes, if there is still care, then why is there distance? The answer is not always simple. Love or strong emotional attachment does not always bring people closer in a direct or easy way. Sometimes it does the opposite. Sometimes it makes people step back, pause, and think too much instead of moving forward. When feelings become deep, they can also bring fear. A person might start to feel overwhelmed by their own emotions. They may begin to notice their own weaknesses more clearly. They might think about what could go wrong or whether they are truly ready for something serious. Even if they care, they may not feel confident in how to handle that care. In many situations, the emotional intensity that you bring into their life also makes them face parts of themselves they usually avoid. It can bring up old wounds, hidden insecurities, or past experiences they never fully healed from. These feelings can become heavy. When emotions feel too heavy, a person may not know how to respond properly. Instead of moving closer, they may step back. This does not always mean lack of interest. Sometimes it is a form of self-protection. It becomes a way to manage emotions that feel too strong or too complicated to handle all at once. They may still want to be close to you, but at the same time feel unsure about how to do it without hurting themselves or disappointing you. In their mind, many questions may start to appear. They may wonder if they are good enough for you. They may worry that they will not meet your expectations. They may fear that if they get closer, they could make mistakes or end up causing emotional pain. These thoughts can build up quietly and create pressure inside them. Because of this pressure, distance becomes a way to breathe. When someone feels overwhelmed internally, they often create space so they can think more clearly. From the outside, this space looks like silence or emotional withdrawal. But from their side, it can feel like the only way to stay stable. It is important to understand that emotional distance does not always mean emptiness. Sometimes a person steps back, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much at once. Their emotions are still present, but they are trying to organize them internally before they can express anything outwardly. Even during this distance, they may still think about you. They may remember conversations you had, small details you shared, or moments that left a strong impression on them. Sometimes they replay these memories in their mind and try to understand what they felt or what they should have said differently. From an outside view, it may look like they have moved away completely, but internally, their feelings may still exist. The difference is that those feelings are not being shown in a clear or active way. Instead, they remain private, silent, and unspoken. This kind of emotional situation is often complex. It is not just about love or lack of love. It is about fear, self-doubt, timing, and emotional readiness. A person can care deeply and still struggle to stay close. They can feel attached and still choose distance because they do not know how to manage the emotional weight. Sometimes they may feel like they are not enough for you. They may compare themselves to what they think you deserve. If they see you as emotionally strong or open, they may feel like they fall short in comparison. This can make them withdraw even more, not because they do not care, but because they feel insecure. At the same time, they may also fear vulnerability. Getting closer means opening up emotionally. It means being seen fully, including flaws and weaknesses. For someone who is unsure of themselves, this can feel risky. They may fear rejection or fear being misunderstood, so they stay in a middle space. They do not fully come closer, but they do not fully leave either. This creates confusion for you because the connection still feels alive in some ways, yet distant in others. This in-between state is often the hardest to understand. Inside their mind, there can be constant conflict. One part of them may want closeness and connection. Another part may want safety and distance. These two feelings can exist at the same time, pulling them in opposite directions. When this happens, the result is often silence or inconsistency. Even their silence may carry meaning. It may not be empty. It may be filled with thoughts they cannot easily express. They might be trying to figure out what is right, what is safe, and what will not lead to emotional harm for either side. They may also be afraid of losing control over their emotions. Strong feelings can feel like something that takes over a person's thoughts and decisions. If they already feel uncertain, they may step back to avoid getting too emotionally involved too quickly. From your perspective, this can feel like abandonment or confusion. You may not understand why someone who seems to care would still keep distance. But from their perspective, they may believe they are protecting both you and themselves from possible emotional damage. This is why their actions may not match their feelings clearly. What they feel inside does not always translate into clear communication or consistent behavior. Instead, it comes out as pauses, delays, silence, or emotional hesitation. Even in that silence, they are not necessarily free from emotion. They may still think about you in calm moments. They may still wonder how you are or what you are doing. They may still feel connected in ways they do not openly show. The emotional bond, even if hidden, does not always disappear just because it is not expressed. It can continue in a quiet form, without words or visible actions. This is what makes the situation so difficult to read and understand. In the end, the distance between you does not always represent a lack of value or a lack of care. It often reflects emotional complexity inside the other person. It can come from fear, insecurity, confusion, or the struggle to understand their own feelings. They may care more than they are able to show. They may feel more than they are able to express. And they may be stuck in their own internal conflict, trying to balance emotion with fear, connection with caution, and closeness with self-protection. So when you notice the silence or the space, it does not always mean absence of feeling. Sometimes it simply means the emotions are too complicated for them to handle openly at this moment. Despite the distance and the silence, one thing still feels consistent. The feelings from their side are not shallow. They are not temporary. They are not something that disappears just because communication becomes less or moments become quiet. There is still care present, even if it is not shown in a direct or easy way. What exists is a mix of emotion, hesitation, and inner confusion that they are trying to manage on their own. They want to stay connected in some way, but at the same time, they feel pulled in different directions inside themselves. One part of them feels attached and emotionally drawn toward you. Another part feels unsure, scared, or overwhelmed by what that closeness might demand from them. Because of this inner conflict, their behavior does not stay stable or clear. Instead, it becomes mixed with silence, distance, and pauses that are hard to understand from the outside. Their silence is not always empty. It does not always mean lack of care. In many cases, silence is what happens when someone is dealing with emotions they cannot fully explain. They may still think about you more than you realize. They may still carry your presence in their memory during normal moments of their day. But they do not always know how to turn those feelings into action or words. They try to live their normal life while also managing thoughts about you in the background. This creates pressure inside them. They may feel like they need to respond in the right way, behave correctly, or meet emotional expectations that they are not fully confident about. Instead of risking mistakes, they choose distance. Not because they do not care, but because they do not trust their emotional stability in that situation. Sometimes a person can feel deeply, but still feel unprepared. They may fear that if they get too close, they will disappoint you or fail to maintain the connection in the way it deserves. These thoughts slowly build pressure in their mind. Over time, this pressure turns into hesitation, and hesitation often becomes silence. At the same time, they may also be dealing with their own personal emotional history. Old experiences, past disappointments, or trust issues can come back when a new emotional connection feels strong. Even if the present moment is safe, their past feelings can still influence how they react. This can make closeness feel more complicated than it actually is. Because of that, they may begin to associate deep emotion with risk. Instead of feeling only comfort in connection, they may also feel fear or uncertainty. They start questioning themselves. They wonder if they are enough. They wonder if they can handle something meaningful without causing harm. These thoughts can make them step back, even when their heart wants to stay. This is why distance appears. It is not always a sign that love is missing. Sometimes it is a sign that emotions are too strong and not fully organized inside them. When feelings become too intense, some people do not move closer. They pause. They withdraw. They try to understand themselves before they try to understand the relationship. From your side, this situation can feel confusing. Your mind may keep returning to them again and again. It may feel like your thoughts are stuck on the same person, even when you try to move forward. This happens because emotional connections do not always end clearly. When something feels unfinished, the mind keeps trying to complete it. You may replay memories, conversations, or small moments. You may wonder what certain actions meant. You may think about what could have been done differently. These thoughts do not appear because something is wrong with you. They appear because your mind is trying to understand something that never reached full clarity. When there is no clear ending, the brain keeps searching for meaning. It keeps trying to find answers. It keeps revisiting the emotional experience in different ways. This creates a loop of thoughts that returns even when you are busy with other things. It is not a weakness. It is how emotional processing often works. At the same time, the connection you felt was not imaginary. Something real did exist, even if it was not fully expressed or developed. That is why it still feels present inside you. The emotional imprint of a strong connection does not disappear quickly. It stays in memory, in feeling, and in subconscious reflection. Even silence does not always erase emotional bonds. In some cases, silence makes the mind focus even more on what is missing or unclear. The absence of communication can make the connection feel even more unfinished. That unfinished feeling is what keeps thoughts active. On their side, they may also be experiencing similar inner patterns, but in a different way. They might think about you during quiet moments. They might remember conversations unexpectedly. They might feel a sense of connection, but still struggle to act on it. They may wonder how things would be if fear did not hold them back. But fear often plays a stronger role than emotion in these situations. Fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of emotional responsibility, fear of hurting someone they care about. When these fears grow, they create a barrier. That barrier becomes distance. This does not mean their feelings are fake. It means their feelings are mixed with internal resistance. And when emotion meets resistance, action becomes inconsistent. One moment they may feel close, another moment they may pull away. This creates confusion for both sides. From a deeper point of view, this situation is not only about love, it is also about readiness. Two people can feel something real, but still not be in the same emotional space. One person may be more open and expressive. The other may still be learning how to handle emotional depth. This difference in readiness can create gaps, not because anyone is wrong, but because timing and emotional capacity are not always aligned. When that happens, connection becomes complicated. It exists, but not in a stable form. Inside their mind, there may be constant inner movement. Thoughts about reaching out. Thoughts about staying silent. Thoughts about what could go wrong. Thoughts about what could be lost. This mental conflict can make them feel stuck. And when someone feels stuck, they often choose inactivity. So what you see as distance may actually be inner struggle. What looks like absence may actually be hesitation. What feels like disconnection may actually be unspoken emotion that has no clear direction. Still, it is important to understand something clearly. Even if feelings exist, they are not enough on their own to create a stable relationship. Emotional presence without emotional readiness can still lead to distance. Care without consistency can still feel confusing. Affection without clarity can still create pain. From your perspective, this experience can also become a form of learning. It can make you more aware of how emotions work, how people respond differently to feelings, and how silence can carry meaning that is not always obvious. It can also make you reflect on what you truly need from a connection. You may begin to realize that you need consistency, clarity, and emotional steadiness. Not just feeling, but also action. Not just thoughts, but also communication. This awareness is important because it helps you understand your emotional boundaries more clearly. At the same time, it is also important not to blame yourself for someone else's inner struggles. Their fear, hesitation, or emotional confusion is not something you created alone. It comes from their own experiences and their own internal world. You can matter deeply to someone and still not be the reason they are distant. Sometimes a person is simply not ready for the depth they feel. And when that happens, they may step back until they understand themselves better. Whether they return or not depends on their growth, their healing, and their willingness to face their emotions. If they ever do return, it will not be because the feelings were missing. It will be because they learned how to handle those feelings with more stability. And if they do not return, it does not erase what was real. It only shows that timing and readiness did not align in the way needed. In the meantime, your thoughts may still circle back. You may still feel moments of reflection or emotional replay. But over time, understanding begins to replace confusion. You start to see the situation with more clarity instead of only emotion. You begin to recognize that love or care is not only about closeness. It is also about emotional capability. Two people need to meet not only in feeling, but also in readiness and stability. Without that balance, even real emotion can remain incomplete. So the distance you feel is not always a final answer. Sometimes it is a pause. Sometimes it is a reflection of inner struggle. Sometimes it is a space where both people are still learning about themselves. What matters most is that you do not lose your own emotional balance in the process. You can care, you can reflect, and you can understand. But you also need to stay aware of your own needs and your own emotional well-being. Because in the end, real connection should not only make you think more, it should also bring clarity, safety, and emotional steadiness. And if it does not, then it is a sign to also pay attention to your own path, not just the silence of someone else.